If you think it doesn't matter what words you're using to speak to yourself, you're wrong. In fact, it matters what words you expose yourself to on a daily basis. Let's talk about it. And it's not just those words that you speak out loud, but your thoughts can be harming you more than what you're saying out loud. And today is day 3 of our positive affirmation challenge. And if you've started this challenge with me, there's something you might have noticed. You might notice, especially if this is new to you, that it feels uncomfortable, at least at first. And you might be thinking, well, this seems silly that I'm saying these words to myself. So let me assure you that it's not silly. We know that affirmations work by helping to reprogram our subconscious mind, and it helps us to alter the way we think and feel about ourselves. Because when we're consistently feeding our minds positive words, positive things about ourselves and even others, we can break the cycle of negative thought patterns. Now, this is supported by neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is just your brain's ability to reorganize itself, and it does this by forming new neural connections throughout your entire life. And as we've seen with Dr. Emoto's rice experiment that I talked to you about a couple videos ago, the environment we create with our words can have a really tangible impact. He showed that rice, when spoken to with kindness, began to ferment beautifully, while other rice subjected to negative words just basically rotted. This visually demonstrated how positivity can preserve and enhance, whereas negativity can degrade and destroy. So just imagine what's happening inside your body in your own cellular makeup. When we also know that we're made up of a lot of water. So let's dive deeper into the science behind affirmations and their impact so that we can explore how what may seem like really simple statements are influencing your brain on a neurological level, and how that can lead to really observable changes in your behavior, in your emotional health, ultimately your life. So let's look at neuroplasticity and those affirmations. We know neuroplasticity, your brain has this ability to reorganize itself, and it does so by forming new neural connections, and it's doing it throughout life. And we know that affirmations can positively influence this process that's already going on, because when you repeat an affirmation, you reinforce a particular neural pathway. Now, an affirmation can be negative or positive, but we're using positive affirmations, which are statements that we're saying to ourselves. And we're repeating them because each repetition strengthens that pathway. And what's happening is when you're doing it, it's making it easier and more natural for your brain to activate these circuits in the future. This can help cultivate a mental and emotional states that you're promoting in your affirmation. So if you're promoting positivity, it can help you manifest that in your life. Now, when you look at the psychological impact, positive affirmations, so when we're moving outside of the body, right? Positive affirmations can also be understood through the lens of cognitive behavioral theory. So essentially what that is saying is that when you have persistent negative beliefs, which are part of what maintains cycles of negative thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, when you're bringing in these positive affirmations, you're consciously practicing this, you're going to begin to challenge and weaken the power of those negative thoughts, and you're going to replace them with more empowering and constructive thoughts. So that also is going to go into emotional regulation, because you've already tapped into the biological, you've tapped in, what's going on in your brain with neuroplasticity, you've tapped into the psychological. Of course, you're going to tap into the emotional, because we know with emotional regulation, research has demonstrated that these affirmations are going to help you regulate emotions. There was a study that was published in the journal Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience, which really demonstrated that self-affirmations are activating a specific part of your brain, your ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Now, you don't need to remember if you know what that name is, you just need to remember that that's the area of your brain that's involved in positive valuation and self-related information processes. So essentially, when you're activating that area, you're helping mitigate the psychological threat that your body goes through, that it feels on a biological, physical level, because it's not just about physical threat that can activate that, stress pathway, that fight or flight. It's also emotional and psychological. And then you get into all kinds of cortisol, negative hormones, etc., expressing on a continual basis in your body. But if you're activating this particular part of your brain through these positive affirmations, then you're actually negating that negative feedback, and you're reducing distress that may be happening if you're a person that deals with a lot of negative thoughts on a daily basis. And if we revisit Dr. Emoto's rice experiment, which you know that I'm actually trying to replicate, and I'll be giving you updates throughout this 30-day process. And I'll link the video that I dropped a couple of days ago that talk about what we're doing with this particular experiment. But if we revisit that, we know that his experiment visually, so you can see it, you can see these principles happening with how you're speaking to these jars of rice. So you could be saying thank you to one jar of rice because one has love. And it's going to lead, ultimately, his experiment showed that when you're speaking these negative words to the rice, or if you're speaking positive words to the rice, you're changing the physical structure and the outcome of what's happening. So either you're uplifting or you're providing some sort of destruction, because it's changing that frequency of that water. Now, while the scientific rigor of this experiment certainly has been often debated and it's been replicated in plants and other things, it really, really does serve as, it shows us how positivity and negativity is affecting our physical and emotional environments. Now, also, it's essential to consider that while the rice experiment does give a visual of what's happening, the results, we'll see, right? We'll see. We've got lots of people that have replicated it, but it's definitely given us a visual of how this can actually manifest in our lives, physically, psychologically, and emotionally. Okay. So when we're doing these positive affirmations, there's tons of research that support this neuroscientific approach. So we know that basically what we're saying is that there's a direct impact on our physical matter, like the rice, for example, but our cellular structure in our own body. We also know that there's a direct impact on our psychological and our emotional well-being. We also know that when you're doing this, it's been shown that these positive affirmations will help you foster greater resilience, optimism, emotional well-being, all components that give you a holistic well-being. Now, the rice experiment that Dr. Emoto did and the concepts of neuroplasticity and cognitive behavioral theory that I talked about, let's explore some of that and make it relatable in terms of the impact of persistent negative affirmations that someone may have on self-image, for example, particularly related to body image, because there's a high percentage of people that actually have a negative self-image of their own body. And this is definitely exaggerated by social media and a lot of other factors that, our world is where we're at. Most of the things happen on social media. But let's compare that negative self-image, particularly body image, with the effects of positive affirmations. So negative affirmations and self-image. So if you consistently tell yourself negative things, such as expressing dissatisfaction with your body, you know what you're doing? You're reinforcing negative neural pathways. For example, consistently thinking, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not attractive, I dislike this about my body or that about my body, is strengthening the associated neural circuits, making such thoughts more automatic, more habitual. So it's going to be as automatic as breathing. So what do I mean? So every day I take a breath, I don't think about it. If you're persistently saying these negative things about your body or some sort of self-image thing, it's going to be just like breathing. You wake up, you look in the mirror. Oh man, I don't look good today. I'm not pretty enough today. My body isn't this today. Do you understand? So this can lead to a persistent state of negative self-perception. And obviously it's going to contribute to emotional distress. Your self-esteem is going to suffer. You may even have depression or anxiety. So in Dr. Emoto's experiment, this is akin to the rice jar that was subjected to insults like you're an idiot, you're not good enough, you're not pretty, etc. And consequently, though, it turned black and just rotted. So if you want to think about it other than you can't see inside your cellular structure, right? But you can definitely see the outcomes of behavior and how that's going to impact your emotional, psychological well-being. Now, the negativity directed at the rice certainly led to decay, just as continual negative self-talk can erode a person's self-esteem and mental health. When you look at positive affirmations and self-image, because this would be in contrast, right? So if you're practicing positive affirmations about your body and self-image, what's happening is now you're forming new positive neural pathways, because affirmations like, hey, I'm proud of my body, or I respect my body for all it does for me, or I look pretty today, or however you want to look at that, is promoting a positive body image and self-respect. Over time, these positive thoughts can become actually more dominant, more habitual, right? So just like I told you before, you don't have to think about breathing. It's automatic. These thoughts will become automatic, these positive body self-image thoughts. So when you look in the mirror, the first thing that would happen is, hey, I look good today. So that's going to reduce the impact of negative thoughts and feelings. In the context of, Dr. Emoto's experiment, this would then be similar to the rice jar that was spoken to with gratitude or thank you. You look great today. You can achieve anything today. And what happened? It fermented beautifully. So just as positive words preserved and enhanced that jar of rice, positive affirmations are going to nourish and uplift your self-image. And when you think about that, the impact on mental and emotional health, the implications of this are absolutely profound in terms of your mental health and your emotional health, because consistent positive talk is going to enhance emotional resilience, increase satisfaction with one's body in the example that I used, and ultimately improve overall well-being. On the other hand, negative self-talk will serve as a toxic element in your life. And what's going to happen is you're harming your mental health. And it's going to be similar to that physical decay that happened in that jar of rice that was spoken to negatively. So embracing positive affirmation it's just like feeding your mind with nutrients that foster growth and overall good health. But if you're indulging in negative self-talk regularly, if it's become a habit, you are poisoning your own well-being. Each thought and word we choose has the potential to shape your brain's wiring and consequently your self-perception and emotional landscape. So choose your words wisely, because by choosing your words wisely, both spoken aloud and whether you're thinking them, you're actively influencing your mental health and life experience. And again, it's much like the outcomes that are observed in the jars of Dr. Emoto's study. And now we've made it to the part of today's affirmation. I hope you understand a little bit more about how these are working, both in your body, outside of your body, and how those changes are manifesting. In today's affirmation, we're embracing our ability to overcome any challenge. So here's our affirmation for day 3. I overcome my obstacles with ease and confidence. Now, this affirmation empowers you to face any challenge head on with the belief that you can handle them. By affirming that strength and resilience, you're building your mental and emotional fortitude. And so you're going to be able to navigate any difficulties that come your way more smoothly. Now, remember, I'm not saying this takes away life, right? Because we all deal with difficulties or daily hassles. This is just making it so you can navigate more smoothly. Now, every time you repeat this affirmation, imagine yourself successfully overcoming some recent challenge that you may have experienced. Feel that confidence. Feel it build within you, knowing that each obstacle for you is just a stepping stone to greater personal growth. So it's an opportunity for learning. Stay tuned for more updates on our rice experiment. And if you're in the challenge, stay tuned for day 4 tomorrow on the next affirmation, and keep sharing your experiences. Your journey is inspiring to me, and it should be inspiring to yourself. And together we are making a whole lot of strides towards a more positive life. And remember, it's not just about changing the rice. It's about transforming your world, one positive affirmation at a time. Until next time, take care of your mind, body, and soul.